Hello, welcome to the Also Jana podcast. My name is Kanyinsola Ajose-Adeogun, and we are joined with our special guests today, Elaine and Onubogu. Today, we're going to be talking about 21st century parenting and the challenges that it might or might not have. So thank you all for being here today. I know that it really means a lot to myself and the team that you guys are here.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. We're happy to be here.
Archdeacon for the small jobs.
We'll have that after that. So my first question is, what are some of the challenges with 21st century parenting, and as far as like information and technology goes?
Well, if I go, I think one of the first challenges is accepting that your children are growing up in a different world than the world you grew up in, and the pressures and the things that you felt were sacrosanct in your world is different today. So their aspirations, their desires, their goals, what they want for themselves, sometimes fundamentally different from what you expect they should want from themselves at this point in time in their lives.
Exposure as well, technology. I think children nowadays are exposed to stuff that we, growing up, were very shielded from. So, for example, if I would talk about things like sex and gender and all of these things, growing up, for us, it was just you were male or you were female. There was really no in between. And then, fine, of course, there was stuff like the gay and lesbianism. But now that world is not even just left and right anymore. It's so complicated. And, of course, technology. Growing up, I remember the first computer we had in our house, and, you had a landline, and there was no way they gave birth to you, right? You could be on your landline at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Now kids have phones, and it's mobile phones. They can go to bed with their phones. So it's a different world.
And I also think, to add to what both of them have said, a lot of us back in the day grew up being scared of our parents, and we saw that as respect, and we weren't allowed to challenge our parents. A lot of kids growing up now are more open to being heard and airing their opinion, and not necessarily being scared to speak to their parents or of their parents.
Very true.
Yeah, I think I even look at how I was raised. I mean, I'm still very young, but even compared to how some of my nieces and nephews, their relationship with their parents is very different from mine when I was their age. You talked about speaking up when I was 7, 8. I couldn't tell my mom or my dad, "Oh, you've hurt my feelings," because it just wasn't a thing.
Because it didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
They weren't valid.
But at 20 something, I can go to my parents and say, "Okay, we've had this conversation. You said this to me. I personally don't like the way you spoke to me, and we can have a conversation about it." But I mean, now I see.
So even your generation is even different from our generation. Tell us of that generation.
I mean, I see kids now of like 8, and you see a child be like, "Mommy, don't talk to me that way," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"You can say such a thing?" Like,
And you're still alive.
I think that, look, there's the world is moved to an information age, and the availability of information means that people can challenge what you say. People can seek information aside from the usual channels they did before, and so it empowers them. I think information empowers you to ask questions, to speak up and do what you want to do. And I think there's also this thing about kids having more understanding of their rights. As mundane as it sounds, my son walked up to me one day and he was saying he was leading a protest in their school. So I said, "For what?" That the guys, the class ahead of them, told them to sweep, and he says that it's against his fundamental human rights to be told in school. And I told him, I said, "I will whoop you in my house if you're suspended for your fundamental human rights for doing something." But it was funny because for him, he felt it was a right that the seniors had no right to tell them to sweep in their room. And I said, "Well, because their schools, they have washing machines." And I'm like, "Guys, we didn't used to sweep. We used to cut grass like
every Friday,
like this
manual
labor, and it was part of our life." So I think the world is changing, and I think for parents, the key thing is to understand that, look, our world is different from their world, and the world of 10 years' time will be fundamentally different. And I think it's even scarier when you look at what your parents think. Some of us think, "Oh, you talking about you kids can speak up." Sometimes the way you speak to your parents, you don't know. Sometimes you talk to your parents like, they don't understand what is happening again.
Yeah.
And I wonder sometimes, I shriek, I say to myself, I wonder what my dad thinks when he looks at the world today. And I was in Abuja over the weekend, and my nephew is 6, and he was having an intelligent conversation with my mom, who is his grandmom. My mom is 70. And my mom said, this boy is so smart. He was telling my mom about, animation. They were watching a cartoon, and he was saying, no. My mom was saying, no, don't watch it. You get scared at night. He said, no, Grandma, this is animation. They do this thing. And he went on, and my mom was looking at him. I'm like, this is what it is. But I guess the ability of information means that they can ask questions.
Yeah.
And as parents, it's about accepting that, look, our world of today is different from the world of yesterday.
Yes.
And will be different from the world of tomorrow.
Yes.
And so you must let your kids thrive within their realities, which is technology, which is, if you're an Igbo person, the first thing you would do if you're a grown-up as a boy, they'll say, you have to, before you marry in Igbo land, you have to maybe have your own house and stuff. And today I say, kids today don't want to own property. They don't want to build houses in their village. They're okay sharing 10 people in a flat because everybody has a laptop and they're doing their thing. And you're wondering, but the definition of a man in where I come from is you finish school, you graduate, you buy a car, you have your own house, you marry a wife, then you're going to build a house in your village, then you're supposed to have achieved all that, then you take a cheap taxi. But those things don't matter anymore.
Yeah, but you know, like I like the fact that you said that, which is also where sometimes I really want for us to, I don't know if we're going to ever find that balance, but the thing is, like, those things that we thought that people needed to do have also helped to shape those people, especially I can only speak from being Igbo, and how I sort of feel like having that sort of stability has also helped a whole lot of home to stay together, and and it's also because it might not mean much, but it also mean a whole lot, because for most Igbo men back in the day when they got married because when they were ready, and it also means they were able to have certain things to work for them, and they didn't have two people struggling to understand each other, people struggling to like fit into the world. I know that technology areas, I think they have moved, but if we can take a bit of what it was that had worked to add to what it is that we think is working now, we can also, like, you know, let me give an example. Like, there are people who are doing what we call vibes. So vibes is the ability to, like, you know, wake up and vibe your way through the day and do something every day.
Yeah.
But I also know that is not sustainable.
There's no structure.
There's no structure. And we need the world, you need structure for things to work. And I give an example where a lot of countries, like in Africa, that got independent from some countries from overseas. And let's use Nigeria and South Africa. South Africa is working because there was a structure that was put in place. And Nigeria, I don't know if it's working or if it's not working, but we also lack the structure. So those structures that the old people sort of put in place have its benefits. And I don't think it's something that we should be willing to just throw away instantly in all totality. I kind of feel like we need to find a middle ground where we take a bit of that and, you know, add it to that's what I think personally.
Well, so that's where the family comes in, because your children are in a world where so much is happening. What are you giving to these children to go out? So you can give your children cars, you can give your children houses, you can give your children money. And then they go out into the world and they just don't have the right grounding to succeed, or to know how to use those things in a way where they don't derail because they have so much, you know? What is it that you've given? So if you... I was going to say, recently there was the whole thing with Davido raising 200 million in a matter of 2 days and something. Davido grew up with money. He now gets 200 million in 2 days. Showing that his father must have also given him some sort of wisdom and some sort of, you know, teaching. He knows that he's not just going to go through 200 million and just do nothing with it. He's done something now positive with it to impact the society around him. If his father put nothing in his head, he wouldn't know what to do with the 200 million. So parenting is that family unit, the family, the church, those places are very important, because you have to put something in your child's head before you send your child off in this world, or in any world anyway, you know.
I think it's about values. I think the first things we can do as parents, and I truly believe that, look, we must insist that children understand that your family is a family. You know, so when you see kids fighting or or parents feeling that, look, oh, the kid doesn't have a responsibility for others. I insist that I tell my kids, you guys owe each other respect and protection. You look out for each other. I always tell my son, you look. So even when he says, oh, you're putting me under pressure, I said, no, your job, it's the job I'm giving you is you look out for your siblings. The same way your siblings look out for you. Your first line of looking out is each other. The second line of looking out is pray. So if you give them those, a foundation of prayer and understand that, look, whatever happens to you is by God. And if you understand that you can always run to God for good or for bad and look out for yourselves, whatever comes on top of it, because things will come. They will somehow, like the Bible says, raise up a child in the way he should go, and when it's old, he will not forget it. When even the chips are, I don't want to say when the chips are down, but when the chips are down or when the chips are up, he will come back or she will come back to the foundations on which he was brought up. And that's all we can do. I think that, look, there's so much you talked about. My son asked me one day about gender and says, no, you can be metrosexual. He went on and on, and even I struggled with the discussion because I was like, I didn't know how to not shut him down.
Yes.
Because shutting down is a waste of my time, but also how to discuss that, not create. He said, look, there are over 200 genders today. And he was telling me with confidence, there are over 200 genders today. You can't say, and we had to go on I had to be very, I was confused. I was trying to navigate it.
Yes.
But, because you don't also want to shut him down and say, look, we don't talk about this. This is not a Christian discussion.
Yes,
and you run away, and then tomorrow he's talking what he wants to discuss. So you have to manage it. But I think the next thing is about prayers. I think that, look, we have to keep praying for our kids. And I don't say it out of, it's not even about the Christianity, just that, look, everybody needs prayer in this world today. Everybody, whether parent or children, we need prayer. So one of the things we owe our children is to constantly pray for them and remind them that we're praying for them. For a lot of us here, when the chips are down, we have friends, all your guys, you walk around, but when chips are down, you tell your mother, pray for me. And you actually believe that your mother's prayers
doing something
is more effective than anybody's prayer around you.
Yeah.
And it is because of the foundations of it. So you truly believe that when they pray from their heart, they listen to you. But as parents, a lot of us don't know that we have children that are mothers, we should be praying, we are their mothers or their fathers, and we think, okay, we just did. Our job is to keep praying for our family, praying for our children, praying for our spouses, because there's enough, problems will be plenty, and there's enough to do. And if we do that, then God will guide us and help us through the journeys of parenthood.
Do you think that technology now has kind of influenced the way you parent and influenced the way you were parented?
Technology has shaped the whole world. It influences everything.
Yeah.
Access to information influences what happens. She talked about your kids having phones and laptops. They go to bed, so you go home and your kids are at 3 a.m. going through everything. The questions your kids would ask you previously, they won't ask you again. They'll find out the information. The things you say, my kids somehow Google sometimes, say, let me find out about my dad.
Wow.
Yeah, they say, oh, this is what we saw about you online. And you're like, gosh, if they're negative things, this is what we see without telling me.
Yeah.
So it shapes technology has shaped the whole world, and that's where it is.
And I also believe that it's important that that you also expose your kids to technology. I'm one of those parents who think I want my kids to challenge me. I would like for my kids to ask me questions. Like, something happened on Friday. I was taking the kids to school, and my last child was I'm trying to find the right word, but she was in the car and she needed her water bottle.
You're saying diva.
That was
the
cantankerous.
Yeah, she wanted a water bottle, but like that wasn't the water bottle that we gave her for the day. And she said she wanted that. We're like, oh, can we give it that to you tomorrow? She was like, oh no, this is what she wants. And one we're at it, and she was like, okay. She does not know what to do. She's crying. I'm like, why are you people crying? Why are you crying in this car? It's about to rain. You're making me something. And my oldest child was like, Daddy, why are you shouting? And I'm like, I'm not shouting, but Eliana is making me, like, she's like, oh, you're like, oh, but Daddy, you can say the same thing without really shouting.
Oh yeah, they would tell you.
And I was like, oh, but Eliana is making me shout. Well, she's like, oh, but Daddy, Eliana is still a baby, so you have to talk to her like a baby. I'm like, okay, I have to talk to her like a baby. Ellie, I'm sorry. She's like, oh, she can't hear you. Like, Eliana, I'm really sorry. I shouted. She now told her younger sister, she was like, "Okay, Ellie, Daddy has apologized. Can you not stop crying?" And she stopped crying. So
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and she could only have learned that by the kind of shows that she watches on TV, on her tablet. But I can also imagine telling my dad to stop shouting. If my dad shouts at you, the only thing that you have to look for is a place to hide. And, like, you know, so technology has, a lot of people might complain on how it's making kids behave, but it has, I think, has more advantages than disadvantages, in my own opinion.
Well, I don't know about more advantages. I think it definitely has advantages. So for me now, different things, like my son can call me at work and he wants to discuss his homework. And I'm like, okay, when I get home, we'll look at it. He's like, no, Mom, just turn your camera on. I'll share my slide. And he's 8. And he's sharing his slide. And he's like, do you see this one? Okay, let me put another thing on. And I'm thinking, honestly, I used to work in banking before I started running my business. Even when I was working in banks, I don't think I could share my slides with anybody. I don't think I could share my slides, you know? And now he's 8, he's sharing his slides, he's showing me all these things. So it works. The downside is when I want to punish him, I'm like, I'm taking your laptop, your iPad from you. And then I take the iPad and I lock it. So I said to my son, I said, you know what, I'm seizing your iPad from you and I'm going to give it back to you in 2 weeks. And guess what my son said? He said 2 weeks. That would be, December 8th. Okay, all right. And I was like, what? And I said, December, I think that's even when I closed school. So he was calculating it. And I was so upset, like, is this boy joking? So I still take the iPad because I'm thinking this is really going to hurt him still regardless. But then guess what? He has to use his laptop for school. So everything I've deprived him of on his iPad, I can't tell him not to use the laptop for school. So he's checking everything. And then when I come, he changes his slide because he's smart enough to change his slide. So technology is, I don't know, Onubogu said it's advantageous. It's stressing me out. It's stressing me out. I'm like, am I
a joke to you?
But then it's like I'm a joke. So he came home the other day and he said he was very upset. And I said, why are you upset? He said his football coach made him run 10 laps on the field. And I said, I see. So even this morning I asked my husband, I said, that boys' brigade that they're advertising in church, do they make them run laps? Or so my husband was like, no, I don't think. I said, which brigade? Where do they make them press up and sit up? Physical activity, that's what's gonna hurt him. That's the punishment because so technology is making me seem like I'm not sure.
So 50-50. And we mentioned your kids having iPads and phones. At what age do you think it's appropriate? Because I said in our pre-production meeting, I got my first phone at 8, but it was like it's about this big, Samsung flip phone, no games, no camera, or you could barely text. It was, those keyboards with ABC. It was that phone. But I mean, I see my nieces and nephews now.
Modern phone.
I see my nieces and nephews now walking around with like an iPhone 11. I'm thinking, how? So at what age do you think?
Well, I think, look, it's an interesting question. My view is, I used to have the view that, look, your kids must be matured, maybe 8, 9, 10, sensible to get, not an iPhone, not an iPhone, but a smartphone. Mm-hmm. But I realize these days that, look, if you deprive a child for a smartphone from like 2 or 3, or if you deprive them to when they are 10, 11, your child is the one that is suffering, not the, that's the truth. So I used to, I had a lot of discussion with my wife on this, especially iPhones. When do you give a child an iPhone? Because I thought it was ridiculous. I will have an iPhone, then my daughter was trying to buy it. And I said, that won't start. We are not, and because everybody in her school has it. So, but I realized that, look, one, it depends on the child. I have a son who, I don't know if it's good or bad. He doesn't, those things don't move him. He does iPhone, money. He doesn't. He's broke. He sits down. He doesn't have it. He said, "Look, Dad, I don't have 29." He doesn't. He's the kind of person that those things don't matter. I have a daughter who those things matter to. So recently I had to just give her. She thought the things. I gave my iPhone 10. I bought an iPhone. I said, "Okay, fine. You want an iPhone because you had an iPhone 7." Because my wife says, "No, you shouldn't even have an iPhone. Give them any normal phone." I think it depends, one, on the child. But 2, understanding that right now, if I had a child today that was born today, I'm sure that by 3, 4, he'll have an iPad he'll play with by around 2. So I'm sure by 3, 4 he'll have a phone. Just because that's his world. It's not like, look, and if I don't do it and it gets to 10 or 15 to have an iPad, I'm in trouble because he'll go to school and look like an idiot. So I can't put him through because I think, well, no, I don't think there's any age, but I think these days, every young kid I know plays with an iPad now. Actually,
6 months. That's what I'm
6
saying.
months,
Otherwise, your TV is going to be talking about daddy finger, where are you?
Yeah.
So you need their laptop to be, their iPad or whatever it is, to go on, bring all those nursery rhymes and stuff for them. What we haven't talked about is social media.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah,
What age do you think?
So for most social media platforms, by way of how they are supposed to be, you have to be above 18 to at least register. So I kind of feel like to a large extent that should be able to tell us without really thinking so much, to know that they already thought about that, to say if kids are below 18, they may be exposed to things that they shouldn't see.
Every kid in the UK,
TikTok.
US is on TikTok, Snapchat. What they are not on now is Facebook. My daughter told me one day, Facebook for all people.
It's like,
Don't do
Facebook.
But all of them are on Snapchat. Everybody, I don't know. So you try to, and what she said is an interesting thing. So we try to control and say, no, you can't be on this. But the truth is that they go to school, so they open an account somewhere else.
Yeah.
You open an account on their school library. You're here monitoring, you're saying you're chasing them.
Yeah.
They have an account, so you start looking for them, try and follow them, say what they're doing.
Yeah, which also brings back to what you mentioned earlier about values. I kind of feel like the values at the end of the day, it's what will really bridge that gap. Is the family value is about you being open and the kids. Like in my own house, the idea is whether you're going to get sent to a naughty corner, whether you're going to get punished, whether you're going to get grounded, you have to always say what it is that you're doing or what you've done, so that way we know and decide what the punishment or what the praise is going to be. I also think the same thing should work with social media. So I would want my kids to be able to say, "Daddy, I have a TikTok account." Then let's not decide if you need to be punished or if you need to get involved. What I wouldn't want to do, or what as a parent that I wouldn't want to create, I wouldn't want to create an avenue where my kids will be hiding things from me. So let me give you an example. So my first daughter is Jasmine, and in the house, Choma, my wife, has said you can use a mobile phone, you can use a tablet, but you can't take my phone or daddy's phone or anybody's phone. So and sometimes because I want to shut them up when I'm driving them to school, I might offer them a phone.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be a secret between me and them, but they also say the mommy says no phone. And that makes me happy, so it means listen, I'm trying to make them not talk to me. I just want them to watch something. I can drive to Ikoyi and they're not bothering me, asking me questions about, Daddy, why is the bridge like this? Are we on the bridge yet? But they also
correct you and tell you mommy said no?
Mommy said no, and others because mommy has said it's not going to happen. So, and for that, I really want that to continue to be in the house. And this was also the reason or something we came up with, because I remember my daughter was 2, she had gone into the room and she has poured the tool on the floor, and she came out and Choma was like, "Oh, why are you smelling of this?" Or she was like, "Mommy, if I tell you, will you beat me?" And I told Choma, "You're not gonna smack any of our child anymore." I because I don't want my child to be scared of if she's gonna be beaten, not to say the things that she wanna say. So we made it like a law in the house. So none of the child will get smacked. They should be able to speak the truth. So even if they burnt the house, then I want my child to say, Daddy, I burned down the house, but I'm sorry. I don't want my child to say, "Oh, I don't know what happened. Maybe the matches or something was faulty." So those values are important, no matter how far they want to go in life. I want them to know that there are certain things that we hold there in the house that we should be able to be open to tell each other the truth. And also that's why when my daughter asked me, she feel like, "Oh, like this one," she said she wanted a phone. And I'm like, "You have to discuss with mommy. That's not my department. We'll let mommy say it." But she knows, in our house, Choma is not, we don't play good cop. Choma is the permanent bad cop. So she's the one who will tell them, "Listen."
No, but I think that's most homes.
Yeah, you're not getting anything.
Most homes it is, but and where I'll say this point around that point is a lot of times mothers, particularly in trying to enforce discipline, turn out to virtually be. I always say sometimes they say no before they even listen to what you want to say. The default is I want no. Then and then you say, "Look, you've not even let them finish. Let you even understand if it's not what they're saying."
Yeah, what they're saying. Yeah, also what you mentioned. I think it's something in my house. I was telling someone the other day. So when we went for lunch, and on the table, people were talking about how their kids sport what's on laptop, do things they sport TVs, they break TVs, and I just realized we didn't have any of those experiences with my kids. And so we came home and I sat them down. I was like, "Oh, I need to appreciate you guys," and the rest of them. People were like, "Yeah." She just went to go and start. I'm like, "You babes, you need to be able to, at the same way you scold them, you should be able to appreciate them for every single thing that they're doing right." So I kind of feel like that balance. So for me, in my own family, is that I try as much as possible. I told everybody to come to the house that we speak to my kids as adults. So you don't say, You say why. You don't say why has two branches and a tail. You have to experience. You have to explain what you cannot explain anymore.
Yeah.
But with the kids, you need to explain. They say to you, "Oh, Daddy, where is the traffic on the bridge?" So I will start with, "Oh, you know what? It's not. Is this time of the morning? A lot of people might have gone to work. Maybe it's raining. They're still in the house. But when people move out from the house, there'll be a lot more cars on the bridge, and there'll be traffic. You can never run traffic light with my kid in the car. Never." They say the red is red. Okay.
No, I think they just pointed out that is listening. I think 21st century parenting is more about we the parents listening to understand, not listening to tell them what we think is right or what is wrong, but trying to first understand their own point of view, whatever that point of view is. It may be a stupid point of view, but at least you have listened. And I think sometimes with Nigeria particularly, there's too much problem in Nigeria. So sometimes you're too overwhelmed with your issues that you just want to look, please. But we need to get ourselves to the point where we can say, okay, let me hear you out.
Yes.
And then we'll make a decision. Even if they're wrong, okay, I've listened to you, then I'll now tell you what we're going to do.
I had a conversation with my mom 2 days ago about my sister, and my sister's trying to make some mini decisions. And I told my mom, I said, what you need to do is you need to call her and listen to what she's telling you. I said, sometimes I think you guys hear, but you don't listen. So I said, let her say whatever it is she wants to say. And I said, please, and I looked at him and said, please don't say anything. Listen to everything she has told you. Take in what she's telling you. And then you can be like, okay, this is what I think. Because if you keep cutting her off while she's speaking, eventually she's going to get to a point where she's just going to do whatever she wants to do regardless, and you're not going to be involved. And then, 3 years down the line, you'll look back and be like, oh, why didn't you tell me XYZ? It's usually, or sometimes I look back and my parents are like, oh, why didn't you tell me, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well,
I
because
tried.
you didn't, you tried, exactly, I tried, and the honest truth is you didn't listen. I think not having your parents listen, I genuinely think can affect you down the line, because I think it affects even with your friendships. You have people around you who don't listen to what you say. You then get scared to actually say anything, because you feel like everybody's just gonna shut you down. So I think it's really important what you said about actually listening to what they're telling you. So you listen rather than hear. I have one more question, and about overparenting or being a helicopter parent. I think my parents have said this to me. They always ask, they're like, are we helicopter parents? Are we too overbearing? I think sometimes, I'm an adult now, but when I was maybe preteen, teenager, you look at your friends and they can go here, they can go to this person's party, that. You think, oh, why don't my parents let me go anywhere? My parents are too overbearing, this, that, and the other. But sometimes as I grow, I'm like, were they really being overbearing? I don't know. And I think everybody has their own definition of overbearing, and I would like to know what you think an overbearing parent is.
So for me, what happened in the 80s is still, I think, very relevant today. So my father was the kind of father that, in fact, both parents, my mom and dad were parents that allowed you to go to parties, but you had to tell them where you were going. Mm. And you could never say to my father, Noble is coming to pick me. Noble can never pick you. You will pick Noble with your driver that I've given you and your siblings in the car. And the driver that he's hired will take you and bring you back. So you could never say, I'm sleeping in a friend's house. All those things. You stay in your own house. Let your own driver take you. But he gave you access to go. I had friends that were scaling fence to go to these parties. People who their parents were sneaking out of the house, everything. I never had to sneak out because I was allowed to. And so party didn't hungry me, and it still doesn't hungry me now. If that's English, I don't know how to put it, but it just never did. Same thing with growing up. When we were growing up, people wanted to go to Ikoyi Club a lot on Fridays. Ikoyi Club was a nice place to go on a Friday night, and my dad used it to. He said, if you don't go for catechism classes, I will drive, and and you don't use the Ikoyi Club membership that I've paid for, I'll send you to boarding school. So Ikoyi Club, we had to go because my father didn't want to waste his membership. Meanwhile, people were scaling fence to go to Ikoyi Club. So they just gave you enough access and gave you time limits and gave you the right people to take you on the right caution. So you never went alone. My sisters would be with me and stuff. And so I think parents need to sort of find some sort of balance. If you try to overdo it, you will suffocate your children, and your children will do it behind your back. That's it. My mom wanted to see what we're wearing, and they'll be like, oh, you look nice. If you're like, you must wear up to here, she will wear up to here, and the minute she gets outside, she's naked. So you have to let your children be comfortable with you, and
Yeah, also
be real with you.
Yeah, I also agree to what you're saying. And I'm always telling people that I don't know in the percentage there are, but I don't think there's any parents that will have a child and not love the child. I think it'd be a hard thing to see a parent ask. I kind of feel like what happens sometimes, most parents do things from a place of love, not necessarily hate or pride they had on their kids. But sometimes it's also okay, and it's not okay, but it's also possible for a parent to be overbearing. But like in everything that we do, you have to always ask. If you listen and you ask yourself questions, you also give yourself the direction that you should go. And like you also mentioned, like Doctor mentioned, when you see what kids of the same age of your child is doing, for some of us who are in Nigeria, who are born in Nigeria, who live in Nigeria, when you went to school, you studied board maths, and maybe in your entire life you have not done anything with board maths. But the kids we compete with overseas, and they are learning things on the computer. The world is changing, the things are changing, but your kids are still using the same syllables that you use, and they haven't really sort of applied to real life. So some of this thing changes. Tech seems to be the new oil now. And with tech, you have to be able to be on a computer. So if you deprive your kids of certain things that should give them an edge to really succeed in changing world, then you're also hurting yourself. You're also not making them experience what they need to experience. So I kind of, yes. So I think as a parent, I want to be that parent who I kind of feel like everything also depends on the friendship. I think friendship is important in parenting. If your child is your friend, or if you're a friend to your child, then you open the means of communication that also help you pass messages across that your child will not see as overbearing. So if you say, I don't think this looks good on you, because so with my kids now, because I have 2 girls, so if I say dress properly, or dress properly, so they know that I mean put your skirt down, close your legs up. I don't have to say it a couple of times, because over a period of time they've learned when they say dress or sit properly, you already know what that means by that. So I don't have to go through the English or whatever. Or when we have visitors in the house and I go like, there are visitors here, maybe you should, they will say, wear leggings. They'll go upstairs. So it's something, if you found that bond, it makes it easier and your kids will understand you more. And when there's friendship, you can pass across any sort of message without seeing overbearing.
Well, okay. It's interesting. I have a different perspective from you. And it's, I guess, sometimes your circumstance of your own bringing also determine what is
most times
what you do right, or what you think is right or what you don't think is right. I never went for a party. I didn't jump a wall, but I never did. But I never did because my circumstances of upbringing were different. My dad was a priest, so priests don't, not because he's a priest. Priests just don't have money, so you weren't going to get the driver to take you anywhere. So it meant that, look, your focus, and I wasn't overbearing sense of every day. No, the focus was that, look, you need to be smart enough to do well in school. The free times you had to find a way to support the home to raise some income. So if I always tell people it's funny, I was a hairdresser, I had this, I did that. You had to do some farming because you needed to do it. It wasn't because you needed to do it. So where you focus, because why is interesting, I asked my mom recently, I asked her, because my friends were in school, I did well in school, so my friends would go out, go for parties and stuff. And I had good friends, they'll come over, they'll go. And I asked my mom one day, why did you never let us go for parties? My mom said, you never asked. And I never asked.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. We never asked because it just wasn't in our sphere of life. That wasn't, I knew I couldn't fail, or I couldn't, if I didn't pass jam, nobody would beg for me.
Yes.
If I failed, they would disown me. So there are things that were just, so you knew what to focus on. So, and honestly, I never expected to ask my, and I have friends who will come with their dad's cars, Onyekachi, let's go somewhere, I'll tell them to go and sit in my house. My mom said, but you never asked.
So the question I want to ask, even though I'm not the moderator, is, how has this upbringing affected your children's upbringing?
It's interesting. First of all, it has. And I see, my wife was from a different, so I see that, look, sometimes we have this conflict as to
which way,
what's right. I'm of opinion that, look, I truly believe that, look, kids, expose them, let them be, guide them, pray for them, and let them be. Ironically, my wife was from the exit, so she went out and stuff. She feels that, look, how parents were to free with them. So she while I'm the let this guy be, she's and I'm like, look, you know, but and again, it's our bringing were very different.
Yeah.
So she felt that parents were let them go and do what they wanted to do. Me, they didn't stop me from doing anything, but I didn't do anything. I had my important things to focus on.
Yeah.
It shaped both of us. But I think that, look, like you said, it's the balance, it's the middle ground. I think my upbringing shaped me in the things I do, you know, the belief that, look, there's nothing phases me. I tell people, look, nothing. If I have 1 naira, I will live. If I have
So
a billion
your
naira, I'll live.
Your son is
That's
real.
why your son gets it.
Yeah, but it is because of my circumstances that made me realize that my parents, and my mom always said, I never forget it. She always says to me, look, one day things will be good for you and you will tell your experiences as a story. She always said that, don't worry about what you're going through today. And I've seen that. So I've seen that I've seen that happen. But I also know that it was not driven, because my wife asked me sometimes, if your dad wasn't a priest and was very well, if your dad was a Dangote, would your mom have brought you up that way? And the answer is probably no.
Yeah.
Because you would have, but circumstances meant that, look, you have to focus on things. I didn't, but at the end of the day, you know, I tell my son, say, look, once you leave secondary school and enter university, life, life takes you on a different path. If you want to be drinking beer every day, go ahead. Because the only thing I can guarantee is that I won't be responsible for you if you go. The guarantee I can give you, and I tell my
I'll pray for you.
I will pray for you and I'll pay your school fees. If you choose to go to school. If you just don't want to go to school,
that's fine.
Because I also accept that I have friends who didn't go to school, who are very successful. I have friends who read up to their PhD like me, and who cannot feed themselves.
Yeah.
So it's, for me, it's about, I say to them, be the best at whatever you choose to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you're a cleaner. Be the best cleaner. If you're a taxi driver, if you choose that you don't want to go, I don't have a problem with it. But if you say, I'm going to be a cleaner, by God, clean so well that anybody who sees you will tell you, okay, you will be my personal cleaner. Because the people who speaking clean things at church, they are cleaners. Whether we call them big or so, they are cleaners. They are not poor people.
Yeah.
So be the best at what you want, what you choose to do. And that, I think, should be a guiding principle of however I'll bring our children into the first century. No, I can't force my child to be a doctor. I don't care. But I can force him to say, look, if you say you want to do coding, by God, be the best coding guy around. Yeah. If you say, my son, the friend of my son told me that, I said, why am I even bothering him? That do I know that there are people there who test games, who play games? And he said, give me this guy has 1 million followers, 2 million. I said, look, you don't have up to 2 followers. So if you had 1 million followers and testing, I will leave you to leave school and be testing games. But until you establish to me that you can have 500,000 people following you testing while you are playing games, then I know that you can feed yourself. But you can't tell me that this man has 3 million followers and you don't have up to 3 followers and you want me to tell you to go and be. I said, just be the best at what you want to do, and then you have my blessing to do whatever you want to do.
That's really, really good advice. Thank you so much to all of you for being here today. I really enjoyed this discussion, and I really hope that you guys will come back. I'd really love to have you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. To follow us on our Instagram and on Twitter. We make it easy so you can find us. It's all for church. Thank you, and I'll be back for another episode. Bye.
Welcome you to All Souls Church, Lekki. Our parish is one of the churches in the Anglican Diocese of Lagos. We exist to glorify God, edify believers, and multiply disciples for our Lord Jesus Christ. Led by our Diocesan Commissioner and under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, we stand on a mandate with 5-fold ministries, namely priestly, pastoral, prophetic, prayer and praise ministries. Join us to worship and honor God as He nourishes and refreshes us.